Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to the Conscious Environment Podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. This week, I got a chance to talk about one of my favorite subjects in the entire world, film and television. I work in it. I live in it. I love watching it in the evenings. It's one of my favorite things that me and my wife do. But I got a chance to sit down with Anwar Ali. He's an actor, a writer, and an acting coach. And we talked about the experience of being black in Hollywood, what black Hollywood is. We talked about the heyday of the sitcom in the 90s and the early 2000s. We also talked about black trauma films and whether or not we should or shouldn't watch them, or do you need to? I don't know. Hope you guys enjoy the conversation. Just go ahead with what's your name, what do you do, and where can people find you?
Okay, my name is Anwar Ali. I am an actor and writer, and I also teach acting. And you can find me, I guess, so like social media, right? Like at the Anwar Ali on all platforms.
Cool. And just quick for the listeners, just spell that real quick.
Oh, yes. So TheAnwarAli.
All right, cool. And if you're listening on any of the podcast platforms, I'll have all the links and everything down below. But the reason why I wanted you on here, the thing that I was like, I need to talk to him about this, is you are an actor, but a lot of your content, you talk about not just like it. You bring up a lot of like my childhood, almost like kind of like the black experience of like what television was for us. Like, and I mean, man, you brought up shows that I was like, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
And black representation in the media has been like top of mind, especially with like Disney and The Little Mermaid and things like that. But also like, the kind of originals have been lending their, the voices to black directors, black writers. Amazon and Netflix are kind of trying to diversify their content for that. So what is your opinion, especially as being an actor, being a writer yourself, kind of working in the field, are we going in the right direction? Is this not what Hollywood needs? Like, as a black actor, when you see representation like this, how does it make you feel? Like, what do you think about it?
Well, I mean, first of all, there's so many platforms and there's so much content out now. There's more content than there's ever been before. So there's so many opportunities, but because of that, you can oversaturate the market, and it can, like, people miss these things. Because I was thinking about how back in the 90s, people used to pay for cable, and it might have been expensive in the 90s, but if you had cable, you paid for it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now it's like there's so many streaming services that if you add them all up, it's a cable bill anyway. But
Right.
if you but like everyone does not have every single streaming service. So there's so many things that are out that are not being seen and aren't finding the audiences that would actually help push them to be the biggest successes that they can be. Plus, on top of that, they don't necessarily get the right promotion so that people will get these streaming apps. Because I know, like, Harlem is a show that is on Amazon Prime. My friend is on it. It is so good. Obviously, it got a second season. It's about to premiere, I think, I think in February. But I know so many people that have never seen it and don't know what it is.
I've never seen it, never heard of it.
Yeah, and it's
what's
a
it
series. It's about a friend group of 4 women. Megan Good, my friend Jerry Johnson. There's Shaniqua Shande, and there's another actor on the show. She was on Empire. And what I remember is that there's so many people that just don't even know this show exists. And what's crazy about it is that it's a show that would appeal to so many different people, right? It falls right in line with anybody who ever liked shows like Friends, Living Single. Right. It's just about a friend, and they're in Harlem, But now most people do have Amazon Prime, but the promotion for it has been just so up and down in my mind. And then there's opportunities, like there's so many shows like across all of them, because I mean you got Amazon Prime, you got Netflix, you got Hulu, You got Tubi. You got you got all of them. You got Paramount Plus, BET Plus. I mean, BET Plus has a lot of little hidden gems, but most people don't have BET Plus. You know?
Right, yeah. Yeah, that was BET Plus was one that I saw like the advertisements or like the promotion for it. Just kind of like gently on the Fire Stick, like just something came up and it was like, "Oh, add this on." And I was like, "BET Plus, what the hell is going to be is there I didn't even understand like what the
Yeah,
streaming service was. Now it's kind of just like even Prime, like within their system, they're kind of breaking it up so that like you pay for channels, and then
yeah,
that channel gets you access to like a bunch of stuff like owned by that like studio or whatever. Like that.
yeah. Now because there's like the All Black channel. That's the name of it. It's All Black, and it's on Amazon Prime. You can like order that. There's like shows. There's a show called Lace on there. There was I think A House Divided was on that channel. But it's like it's so hard to even know this stuff exists or that it's happening.
Right. Yeah.
BET Plus is funny because I know a lot of people thought BET Plus was just old episodes of sitcoms or like BET shows. So like if you wanted to watch Hell
Yeah.
Day or like College Hill, you would get
Yeah.
BET Plus. But like there's so many like there's actually films on there. Like Monique has a film called was it the I just the I don't even remember the title of it. I just saw a trailer for it yesterday, but it's starring Monique. Like
Oh yeah. Is
yeah,
that the movie that she's been trying to talk about for like the I feel like the last like couple of years she's been talking about some movie that's been like coming like something's been in the works. She's been
yeah,
working
no.
on something
So
for like a little
it's a
while.
horror film. So like Monique, she was talking about being essentially she was saying that she was blackballed, or not even that she said she was blackballed, but she said that Lee Daniels said she was blackballed, and so
Right.
she had opportunities come to her that didn't pay her worth or what should be the standard for an actor that won an Oscar, and so
Right.
she turned down a lot of opportunities. Like so, this is like her coming back, and so I think this is a horror. This was an indie horror film that
Hmm.
was actually executive produced by her and her husband. Lee
Oh,
Daniels'
cool.
name is actually on it as well now, but I think he came on later to help sell the project. Um,
Oh,
but I know Monique was on this project from the grounds up, and it was an indie film. Like it could have, in theory, been picked up to go to the theaters, whatever. But BET Plus picked it up, and so that's where it's going to be streaming next month. So like, there's so many opportunities, and I bet you most people don't even know that
right.
that's happening. You know?
Right. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I so BET is actually kind of like an interesting thing to me because a lot of times when we talk about representation or something like that for the black community, that's always the thing. Y'all have BET, y'all have BET, y'all have BET. But the pushback I always kind of give is like, I mean, sure, but like it's still owned by like a white guy. Like,
Yeah.
like at the end of the day, like it's the decision maker is still like a white guy, like interpreting what black people want to watch or like what black people want to see, and this white people watch it too. Like,
Well, I mean, a
it's still
lot of the actual decision makers at BET, I will say this, it's owned by white people, but a lot of the decision makers and a lot of what gets on television is actually black. Like the day to day
cool.
overseers of what gets picked up and how things are marketed is usually the black people that work at BET. So I will say that. I think because it's very easy to be like, well, BET is black owned. It's like, yeah, I mean, it's white owned, but I'm like, yeah, but all of it falls under the umbrella of
Right,
Viacom, correct? But
right, 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 right.
every network has decision makers, and BET is at this moment in time primarily run by black people on the day to day. So I will say that
Awesome.
that's the thing about BET that a lot of people never talk about, and BET's not that it's not too different from something like TV One or that's in fact I will say that BET is actually getting stronger at depicting the wide range of the experience of being black. I
Hmm.
think at one time they were chasing other networks. I think now with the invention of BET Plus, it's more about just let's just capture the black audience, and the
Right. Yeah.
wide range of it.
Yeah, because I mean, even just you talking about Monique is in a indie horror movie, like
Yeah,
that is almost unheard of. I mean, we have kind of the darlings. We have Jordan Peele. Oh my gosh, who was the writer on the Candyman? It's a woman, and I
Uh,
should
uh,
remember her name.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
Yeah, but yes,
yeah,
the actual person that wrote Candyman
yeah.
is a black woman. They used Jordan
We need
Peele's
to
name
cross.
to sell the movie, but like that's who it was, and so was the director. That movie, I think it's in theaters still right now. Megan, with like
Yeah,
the backwards three. That was co-written by a black woman and I think James Wan. That also feels like another like using this name to kind of sell the movie, but also get these people in front of an audience or like get their work out more.
yeah,
And the studio's like, we're going to use this other name to just
definitely,
kind of to pull it along and give it a little bit more oomph behind the marketing.
definitely. I think,
But
yeah, Akila Cooper. She wrote,
yes,
yes,
yes, yeah, that's it. I knew we'd get there. So when we're focusing on I've had this conversation the last, I guess, like couple of days with people, like the difference between like racial integration and cultural representation.
hmm,
So a lot of times it feels like yes, we got black people on screen. Like I'll say this: a lot of you've brought up some stuff that I'm like I forgot about these movies, but there's a lot of I was just talking to my wife about it when we first got Disney Plus that I hadn't seen like most of the Disney Plus, like most of the Disney original films. Like I never watched any of them
right,
because I was like I remember being a little kid feeling like I don't see myself, and if I do see myself, it's one of two characters. It's either it's either the famous Jet Jackson or Urkel. Those were the only two archetypes of like black people it felt like were like in that realm, like on screen. It was like
yeah,
either suave and super hypersexualized, or it's
completely
really
desexual.
really smart but goofy beyond any normal person.
Right.
So do you think that like with shows like, which controversial or not, whatever, shows like Blackish or honestly, I'm kind of blanking on a few more that are even like this. Do you think we're moving more towards cultural representation? Man, there was another really good one that I can't. I think it's just called Family Reunion, and
Oh
I think
yeah,
it's on Netflix.
it's on Netflix. Yeah. Um, are you talking about like sitcoms?
I mean, kind of everything, I guess. Like, are we seeing more cultural representation? Do you think, or are we seeing just more black people on screen?
I mean, I will say this, like, I think we're seeing more black people on screen, but I do think that we are getting more of a wider range of what blackness is and can be. Um,
Hmm.
Not necessarily in sitcom form because there's not too many sitcoms in general, but
Right.
like in general, like, or especially not like multicam sitcoms. Like the closest you do have is something like Family Reunion, but I've never actually seen Family Reunion. I just know it exists, but
Hmm.
I think I think through film and television, I think we are starting to see that black people are, I mean, I think it's representing that black people are not a monolith. It's not just, I think in the 90s, a lot of shows like Family Matters,
Hmm.
they had white writers. And the thing is, in some episodes of Family Matters, you can't tell me that was not a white family.
Right.
Just it was just a white family with some black people placed in those situations. Because in a way, all sitcoms, it was a Miller Boyette sitcom.
Right.
It was no different than Full House. It just happened to have a black family. And the intention of having Family Matters on TV was just that they wanted ABC wanted a black family because they didn't have a black family sitcom. They just like, we need one. We need to tap into the Cosby Show market.
Right.
So Yes, now, because I think now Black people are behind these projects more than ever. And I think what we really need, beyond just seeing Black people on screen, is we need Black people behind the camera. We need Black people that are writers.
Right.
We need Black people that are, we really need Black people that are the decision makers, and Black people that are
Right.
greenlighting these projects. But yeah, I think what's happening now is Black people are just telling the stories. And so there's a
Right.
diverse, wider range because it's coming from Black people. Even something like the Miss Pat show. It's like you would think a show like that would not be diverse, but they represent the wide spectrum of Blackness in the main character, the main cast. Like they don't feel like anything you would have ever got in the 90s.
Right. Yeah. No. 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 I agree. I'm just trying to think of. I feel like Family Reunion is. I think why you kind of have there's like a mixed response on whether or not people like it is because it's very reminiscent of like the early knots sitcom style, which I don't know if it holds up right now, like if it plays the same way, like a lot of camp. But that was kind of like the style. Like think of like My Wife and Kids or like the Hughleys. It like definitely like in that vein. It's a
Yeah, yeah.
family. There's like four different locations, and most of them are around the house. And they just walk from one room to another room, and shenanigans happens every week, and then they get through it.
Yeah.
And there's some sort of heart to heart in the middle of the episode.
Right.
One of them learns a lesson, and then that's it. And I think a lot of people are kind of down with that formula because it's something that I just want to jump off of something that you said. We watched a lot of white sitcoms in the late 90s do that same thing. And I think it feels hollow, like watching it now, especially like in our climate right now, like kind of watching it and being like, yeah, I don't know, this feels like it feels weird. It feels like you guys are calling back to something that should have been gone or is gone, and it kind of it kind of reminds me of like the beef that people had. And I think I've heard you talk about this a bunch. The beef that people had, like when Friends came out,
Oh,
and they
yeah.
were like, "This is just living single."
Listen, I mean, hey, are they lying? If it is, but
Yeah,
but what was different about even an example of like Friends or Living Single, it doesn't matter, Black or white. I think they were just strongly written shows. They were just
Mhm.
they there was a little bit more intention behind them. There were less networks. Here's the thing: there was less networks. There was less content. So you had to be good to last because
Right.
people were just going to go to another network. Now it's like people just watch whatever they want. They have the streaming platforms that they have. They're going to watch Netflix, or they're just used to watching. I think the way we watch television has changed, you know? And I think, yeah, I mean, that was the difference. Like, there's so much out. Like, you could be crap and just stay on for a little bit longer. I don't know if Family Reunion is good or not. I've never seen it. But what I know is that it is nominated for the Children and Family Emmys, which means that Netflix does not see it as like a top notch primetime show. They've literally
Right.
relegated it to like the kids categories. So Netflix is not giving it the budget. I know that. And
Right.
they are not, they don't have to promote it because they got the little audience that they got, and they're literally never going to change it.
Yeah.
And so yeah, so it's they're
Actually,
not gonna. Back then, like if a show wasn't like, the network would get behind it and be like, okay, we need to change this, we need to improve it. The show is exactly what it's ever gonna be.
right. Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. Someone brought up in the comments Abbott Elementary, and that one that was kind of like a sleeper hit a little bit. Like people really liked it, but when award season came around last year, I don't think anybody was expecting it to walk away with so many Emmys, get nominated and then leave with them after. But that's a show that I kind of want your opinion on a little bit of a controversy that surrounded the show. So that show, I think, does a really good job of showing black culture. Like, you can't make Abbott Elementary and make everybody white. I know there's white cast members, but I don't think you could make that show and make it a school in the suburbs and have it be the same show.
No,
Like, I
absolutely.
think the culture, the city culture, the fact that it's a bunch of black kids that they're dealing with most of the time, and they do not shy away from the racial implications of the white teachers trying to teach black students and struggling with it. There's one character; it's a reoccurring thing, but this was kind of rumor mill stuff. I don't know how true it is, but something I heard kind of right around the time that it was getting the Emmy last year. So I guess this time last year, they were talking about an episode that the writers threw out. That it was, I think it was a note from the studio, like a suggestion, or somebody came up with this idea that like maybe they should tackle like school
Like school shootings.
unalivings.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, so what
Yeah,
I think
yeah. You take off with
no,
it. I
what
want
that
your
was
just
a lot of
raw
people.
opinion on it.
Yeah, I think a lot of people were suggesting that. I think it was Twitter. I don't think ABC wants that because I don't think they want to step into that because it will change the entire direction of the show and they like where the show is going. I think there were people saying that we need to touch on this on television. This is happening. It's a show about a school. And it's like, okay, but that's not what this show's intention is. And what has made Abbott Elementary so successful is because it is so clear about what it is trying to do. Number one, it's got Quinta Brunson is behind every single decision of that show. And you could
I
tell,
love that.
like,
I love that so much.
but like she came in with like, this is what the show is. This is what the show is going to be. She knew what she wanted. She knew what audience she wanted to hit. And to me, Abbott Elementary is a show that is culturally specific, which allows it to be universal. Through specificity, there is universality, which means when you tell a story that is so unique and different, everybody can connect to it. Ultimately, I think of like something like Squid Game. That's very culturally specific, but everyone was watching it and somehow tapped into it. I
Right.
think with Abbott Elementary, Quinta Brunson, what it is, Quinta Brunson is unapologetically black. She may not be any stereotypical idea of it, but like that is what's interesting about blackness is that we just need black people that like being black. We need black people that embrace being black, that are working, and they might be black nerds, they might be awkward, but they're black, and that is what I think really shines through with the show. It kind of reminds me of like what's the show that like something like Amen, like a black sitcom that feels very culturally black and very specific that isn't trying to be black. Like it's clearly not made for the white gays. You know what I'm saying? Like it's not
Right.
like no like no shade to blackish, but you could tell like they were teaching an audience about blackness. Like the head nod episode, I was like, well, that ain't for me. I know that. I know that. I don't,
I mean, I don't want. I'll throw a little bit of shade at Blackish. That was one of my big critiques of the show, Mixed-ish and all like every single one of them. Like, what's his name? The creator, Sasha Barrett or Sasha
oh,
is
Kenya Barris?
oh Kenya Bears.
Yeah.
A bunch of the stuff that he does. And I've read like a lot of like his writings. I watched he had that did you ever watch that show about him? It was super meta. It
Yeah.
was about him and it was supposed to be this like I guess like not found footage, like this like faux reality show kind
Yeah,
of
yeah, yeah.
thing. And it just followed him and his family around, and he was writing a new sitcom, but the sitcom that he was writing was the thing that we were watching. It was very meta, but he took shots at himself and talked about like how he wasn't super happy with Blackish and like the way that it came out and like how like how it was received, how it was portrayed, and like dealing with this idea of like being a sellout or whatever to like a bunch of different to the black community. But that show, like, yes, that I guess that was my biggest critique of the show, was that it felt like it was not for me, but it kept telling me that it was for me. But then I would watch it and I would go, this isn't for me. This, I know it's written by a black guy, but it feels like an idea of what a white guy thinks black people are like.
And honestly, if it just owned the fact that it was for white people, we probably would enjoy it even more because it would feel like we're in on a joke, right?
Right.
Like it would be making fun, like of this is a black sitcom. I don't know. I'm just talking, but like I think with Blackish specifically, it's clearly it's just made from the white gaze. They describe things, they tell us things that black people inherently know, something that Abbott Elementary never does. Like what I don't even know who said this, but like I think it was Toni Morrison said, if you mention the kitchen in the back of the hair, you shouldn't describe what that is in your writing. Because if you describe what that is, clearly you're talking to white people. But if you just say, my kitchen in my back of my head, and then keep on with the conversation, white people are going to be forced to actually learn who you are and get to know you if they're interested, which is going to create a more stable audience. I think with something like Blackish, it's like, it didn't even get as celebrated as Abbott Elementary is, even though Abbott
Right.
Elementary is completely owning its blackness. And why is that? Because Abbott Elementary is just being what it is. It's just giving you entertainment. It's a show. You know what I mean? It's giving you a very specific story. I mean, think about it. Like, how many things have you seen about white people where you don't fully understand what they're talking about, but because you are just drawn into this story, you follow it and you keep watching it.
Right.
Those are the best. That's the best work, and we're no different. And we feel like the way to bridge the gap between black and white audiences is to teach white audiences something. That's doing a disservice to ourselves and to them.
Right. Yeah. No, I agree. This kind of makes me think of a I think it's Denzel Washington. I'm gonna paraphrase this quote, but they were asking and they were saying, yeah, because it was when he was promoting Fences.
Yeah.
And the interviewer was asking him, saying, like, do you think it's like, why do you feel as though you needed a black director to be able to do this justice? And he was like, Martin Scorsese did The Godfather and Steven Spielberg did Schindler's List. And I think Scorsese could have done a good job with Schindler's List and Spielberg could have done a good job with The Godfather. But there was cultural differences and little nuances that made the direction as powerful as it is. And he's like, if I talk about the smell of grease and the hot comb hitting the back of your head and the sizzle. He's like black people don't have to imagine what that is. They just remember what that is. Black culture, it's so ingrained in there. Like if you haven't experienced that or you don't know what we're talking about, how you're going to be lost. So how could you as a director lead lead with that? Like how could you direct somebody with a topic that you honestly don't you don't fully understand?
Yeah, like think about it. A director's on set and they're learning as they're going rather than just doing. Because like I think people love the movie Crooklyn, right? You know why people like the movie? Because it's about the details. There's so many small details in that film that if it wasn't a Spike Lee film, it would have just been a story about a black girl.
Right.
Right? It would have been like the general story. Like sometimes these films that are directed by that have white directors that are about black people, sometimes they're actually good or like the story is there, but there's just no the details aren't there. You know what I mean? And I think like I don't know, black people love Color Purple. But if a black director made that movie, they would have said. So hey, so why they not speaking English at the end? Like what are we doing? What story are we telling? That is something that
Right.
is so clearly a white decision because in original novel, when Celie's kids come back, they
Hmm.
they're speaking English. They're speaking
Yep.
English, but they don't speak English, or at least it's not clear English in the actual film. And it's like, what was that decision? What is that? What is that decision actually saying?
Right. Yeah.
What is it like that they can't be multilingual?
Mm,
We don't need to know that they're speaking another language. It's like they're here for a very short amount of time. They are just supposed to connect with their mama. Let them
right.
speak
Yeah.
English and let them connect. That is it. That's all it needs to be. But what story are we telling, right? And I think a black filmmaker would have thought about that. It's just little things like that. Doesn't mean it's not a good film, but
Yeah, I think somebody's bringing up in the comments that Black Panther, directed by a white director, would have been a totally different movie, and I can't agree more. I just finally just saw the second one, Black Panther 2, just about a week ago, and the the little details that they put in the film, like, because there's a lot of just city shots, just there's the streets of Wakanda, just looking at what the city looks like and what they're doing, and the tiny details that that you see, and you're like, yeah, 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 that's real. It makes me think of Trevor Noah when he was talking about watching the movie for the first time, and he was like, that's my language. This is for me. This part of the movie is for me." And I think that's such a beautiful and like amazing thing. And I don't think at the helm, I don't think a white creator could be able to capture that nuance that black people pick up innately about their own culture.
yeah,
But speaking of the color
and like
purple
talking about them
and
being ashy. They talked about being ashy. It's little lines like that. If you don't,
uh,
no, for real though, think about it. Like they're like, that's not for white people. That's for black people. Those
hmm
lines, like white people might be lost, and we're not afraid for them to be lost while watching this movie. We're talking about ashiness right now. It's
right,
for black people, and when black people know it's for them, like that's the best work.
right, yeah.
Yeah.
It makes you want to tear up in the theater. Yeah, like them dabbing each other up, like every little small detail that they did is just amazing. Yeah. The designer, Ruthie Carter, she everything that she touched in that film is amazing and beautiful and
Yeah.
unique, but it feels like home. Like a lot of people that a lot of my friends from overseas talking about the film, and they're just like, Wakanda looks like a place I've been to. Like Wakanda looks like parts of Kenya. Wakanda looks like cities in South Africa. Wakanda looks like cities in Ethiopia. Like they didn't just make up something completely, because they knew what they were talking about the whole
Right.
time.
And it wasn't just like a generic Africa. Some big orange place. Like there's some big
Right.
orange place, like where everybody's just got like a fake Africa that we've all seen before, like in media. No,
Right.
they didn't go there. They didn't do that. No.
Nah, yeah, not at all. And you brought up the color purple, and I kind of wanted to bring up that style of movie, or like movies kind of adjacent to it. So we also see a lot, like we do. We have our Black Panthers, and we have our Abbott Elementaries. We have our lighthearted shows, or shows that deal with drama, but it's fine and through the lens of the black experience. But also we have this kind of flip, like Emancipation just came out with Will Smith, and I don't think anybody's seen that movie. I don't know anybody that watched it.
I just did
I
I literally just did a video where uh, I said Antoine Fuqua, he directed that movie Emancipation with Will Smith that none of y'all saw, and like somebody actually got upset by that comment saying it was disrespectful, and if I saw the movie I would learn something. I said I didn't see the movie. I just said that nobody saw the movie. It's a fact. Like
right.
yeah, but yeah, things like you talk about, like what the black trauma movies.
Yeah, the black trauma movies. So is that like I think certain stories need to be told, and I think there's a place for them, but it feels sometimes gratuitous. Like, should we move away from those things? Like, what do you think? Somebody's saying in the comments right now, I'm tired of those movies.
I
I
think
feel like black people are exhausted by those movies.
I just think that if we had more representation and more and a wider spectrum of ideas placed out as films and in the media, like it wouldn't bother us so much. In theory, I think it's because I don't think it's so much that we get so many slave movies. I just think it's that those are sometimes our main movies. Those are the movies that usually get the most attention. They're the films that get the most awards. They're the films that we are supposed to consider our great classic films. I'll be honest. I got a friend. He's a filmmaker. He's white. And I'm really learning a lot about how white people in this industry think through him. He actually thinks, and he is like he's very self-aware. He is a white guy that is anti-racist. He does anti-racist work. But he still thinks in white, right? So, right. And what I mean by that is the only films and television series that he ever sees that are about black people tend to be white critic approved, white male critic approved films. Right. And so what happens with, I think what we're sick of is our biggest budgets, our most promotion, and our most acclaim and awards going to those films.
Right.
And they're not just a part of, like, if we've never had we've had maybe a few that came close, but we've never had a black actor win an Oscar for a role that did not have to be a black actor. They win for historical films. They win for trauma. They win, then occasionally you'll get something like Angela Bassett for Wakanda Forever, which is pretty good because, she had to be black, but it's a different kind of experience. But we don't get that experience celebrated on screen. And I think that's really what it is. It's about like, so I don't know. I think those stories have a right to be told. I think actually they are teaching a lot of people history that maybe they wouldn't read in a book. I think Till came out. Listen, I have a close connection to a lot of these films. I know Danielle Deadweiler. So of course I'm going to see the film. Of course I'm going to celebrate it. But the thing is, like, I also understand why people are not going to see it. I understand why. And I think that we have to be cool with these films being made and they're for the audience that they're for. And if you can't watch it it's not that they don't need to be made. It's not that we shouldn't have them. It's just that they're not for you right now. I think, and absolutely, that's valid. We see a lot of trauma. We don't need to see, or we already know these stories, so we don't have to see this story. But I think it doesn't hurt to actually have the films made. It's just that ultimately they're considered the best films or get the most attention.
Kind of that Oscar bait sort of thing. Like, we all know the movies that they're gonna, whenever they do like some sort of collection of, these are all the Oscar nominated movies, you're just like, okay, well, here's 12 hours of super sad movies. Yeah. Like, just heavy dramas. Like, nothing light ever really goes that way. So it feels like a lot of our acclaimed films are always just like the worst things that are happening. And somebody brought up in the comments, white saviorism in these films as well.
Oh, yeah.
And I just like you to touch on that. One that jumps into my head is Green Book, because they like changed that story to fit that character into that white savior role, and that one was kind of like the wildest, like, egregious example that I could think of. But what's your opinion on those?
On the white savior films in general, or or that one? Listen, Green Book. It was what it was. I mean, whatever. The acting was great, and yeah, I mean, it told a very familiar Hollywood story. I think white savior films, like, the thing is, I think a lot of people like the white savior films in the '90s when it was like stuff like Dangerous Minds because there was still something a little authentic about aspects of it. They like Dangerous Minds or like what's a white savior film from the. They were also a lot more rare at the time, mind you. Like we didn't have as many like white savior films have been made since they started telling race relation stories for the most part, right? Our first race related films were things like In the Heat of the Night,
Right.
or like what was it? Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, where they're through the white perspective, right?
Right.
So those were our first race related films. I think we are getting kind of sick of like the trauma films, but then in a way that is also us telling our own stories for the first time, I think. So a lot of you have to understand that like something like Till, that's a story that's never actually been told on film. And if Hollywood wasn't Hollywood in it probably would have got made sometime in the 80s. Shouldn't that film have been made in the 70s or the 80s? Like take a step back. Yeah. The
Till
90s
should be a classic that we've been talking about for 30 years.
Right. Like why have we not had films until the 2020s about that story? So I think what's happening is we're getting so many of them at once when this should have been part of the fabric of film history already. So I think like I think it all ties in together about like white savior films. They be funny. Like I'll laugh at one. Like The Help was a white savior movie. And they really tried to convince us in the promotional campaign that it was not. They were like, no, Viola Davis and Octavia Spencer were like, no, this is a story about the Blades. Later on, they were like, no, it was. They didn't really tell us.
We knew what it was.
Right. we just wanted to get the awards so we could make better decisions. Like, please, like,
give Octavia that, give her that little statue so that we can get her in a bunch of other stuff that I love too.
Right. But like the white savior films, it really all it is a lot of times what it is Hollywood believing that people are not going to come see a black story if they don't have a white face to filter the story through.
Right.
And as you can see, something like Abbott Elementary actually shows that sometimes the best work about black people does not have that. Yes, there's some white people on the show, but it's clearly not from their perspective. The white people are depicted as white people through black eyes. Like
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And so
like that opinion of like how a black teacher sees her white coworkers.
Yeah. You're so the Hughleys was one of the blackest shows that was on TV. I'm surprised it ever actually got picked up at all because it was on in the 90s. But like that was an example. Like that was one of the closest things you have to something like there were so many black sitcoms in the 90s. Right. That's the thing. There were a lot of black sitcoms in the 90s that were from the black perspective. That's why black people love Martin because it was just a black show by black people for black people. And it's so obvious, like that cultural specificity just permeates through. And the thing is, Martin is so successful today, not only because black people love it, but because over time it has been in syndication and so many white people have seen it. And what I think they're realizing is that it would have been even more successful if they tried to make it a universal show for everybody. Martin is actually a show. First off, it was not any more risque than a lot of other shows about white people that were really successful. Living Single and Martin, and that's one of the reasons why they did the thing with Friends. Because the truth is, Martin and Living Single are two of the most culturally specific shows that have ever been on, and yet they are enduring, and people love them still. So why is that? And so I think the white savior aspect is Hollywood not learning the damn lesson. That people that if you make it and it's good, they're gonna come and they're gonna watch it. And so like I mean, even like Black Panther, like there's the white savior aspect isn't there. White savior films sometimes do well, but no, I mean, I don't even know where I'm going with that. I just wanted to like speak on that cultural specificity versus the white savior aspect, like
right. I mean, yeah, some of them do okay, like, but I just think of we don't even have to name it. because there were so many of them, I'll just describe this. It was an inner city school, heavy air quotes, an inner city school, with a bunch of black kids, and maybe there was a sports team that they played on. It could have been basketball or football, mostly black kids that played on it, and they had to get rid of their coach because of like budget cuts or something like that. But there was a white guy or sometimes a white lady that was like, "I'll come in and coach them for free out." And because they never got that perspective before, they learned something new and they were able to win the big game.
Come on.
That I described like at least 5 or 6 movies just now. I don't.
Sunset Park. You said white lady. I said Sunset Park. We're real promise. Like,
Yeah, yes, yeah, hardball,
oh,
Sunset Park.
Hardball.
Oh man, there's so many of those.
I
But
remember controversy with Hardball. Okay, so fun story about Hardball. I'm from Chicago. That was filmed in Chicago. They didn't cast me in that movie because I didn't know how to play baseball, but I came close enough. But like my classmate was in that movie.
oh
He
really?
played Jefferson Albert Tibbs, Julian Griffith, and I remember when the movie was made, I remember there was like so much controversy because they had the kids cussing. Like they were cussing a lot. And I was like, this is realistic for kids in this area to cuss, but like it's not common for movies to depict
Right.
kids in general of this age talking like that. The movie got an R rating because of the cuss words. And so they had to re-edit out. They had to like because Paramount was like, we're not about to put this movie out here with all these kids cussing and get an R rating when kids are going to be the driving force of the movie. And so they actually had to redub a lot of lines. If you pay attention, you can see the cuss words like the mouths don't match and everything. That was a movie of, but like they did that just to show how gritty it was with this white man coming in. I know what they were doing, and it almost made that film completely bomb at the box office because just how gritty they tried to make it so that he could save them, you know? Yeah, hardball.
Oh man, I didn't know that because the only time I ever watched it was like on cable TV. Like I watched it on TV, so the words not matching up. Like you get those overdubs of like the cuss words, and it's like you mother father. It would just be crazy.
But that's what they
Uh,
did. The movie was in theaters. It looks like that in some parts if you actually pay attention.
oh man, I didn't know that. I didn't know that about that movie. Um, yeah, that's wild. And I, I guess yeah, in the 70s and 80s we did have black exploitation films. That is a terrible name for just like black made low budget films that really heavily leaned into big characters, but those
Yeah.
characters were always just black as hell. Like it was who they were, but they were still always caricatures and and
Yeah.
written by black folks to be over the top on purpose. So we did have that, and then I feel like in the 90s we got this kind of reprieve, but that's when we started Roots and I can't even think of the other ones, but we started having more films talking about like trauma and stuff like that. And something I always just advice to give to people is like the series. Did you watch How They See Us
When they see us.
or When They See Us?
Yeah.
I we Me and my wife, we started it. I think I made it maybe 20 minutes into the first episode, and I had to turn it off. Like, I think it came out. It didn't come out in like 2020 or late 19,
I
early
think it
2020.
was 2019, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I just I couldn't watch it, and I felt so guilty that
Yeah.
I couldn't watch it because I was like, oh man, I'm supposed to support black, like this is the show, like we're supposed to be supporting each other, and I gotta watch this, I gotta consume this.
Yeah.
And I saw someone make a good point at that time, saying like, if it's gonna harm you or it's gonna hurt you, it's okay to take a break from it. even in our entertainment, seeing black trauma. Like we see black trauma all the time online, everywhere, on the news, on the radio. Like we experience black trauma constantly. It's okay if your entertainment, you also don't want to see that, or you don't
Yeah.
want to watch that. So be kind to yourself. Take a break. Take a step back if you need to. And but I agree with you. I didn't even think about it like that. Those movies, those stories do need to be told, and I don't think it. You should. We should hold back from telling those stories or having that media out there, even if it is hard sometimes for us to consume it ourselves. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, and I think it makes sense. Like you obviously, if it's not, if listen, the nervous system doesn't know any difference. So like actually seeing some trauma happen in front of you or in a real life video is not too different from seeing depicted on a film, right?
Right.
So, but also we don't want ourselves to see it so much that we get so desensitized to it that it actually isn't affecting us in that way, right?
Right.
So obviously you need to take a step back. You need to, because that's actually not only what protects you, but it also what keeps you from losing the impact of it. That's how I think of it. Like, not only do you need to step away to protect yourself, you need to step away so that you don't become so used to this that it doesn't affect you anymore.
Ooh,
You know,
yeah.
we
Yeah.
don't want black trauma to become horror. Just, and I think that's
Right.
where people had an issue with that the Prime series Them, because
Yes.
it was promoted as horror, and in some ways it did have horror elements, but it really did use trauma as horror. And it's like, are we so like, how is what is this, who is this affecting, and how, and who did you make this for? Because for us, we don't need to see this in this way. And
Right.
this is real life horror, and we don't need to depict it in this. I think that's where a lot of the drama came from with that one. Because Lena Waithe, she got some. She, Lena Waithe is she's special. With
It's
her.
somebody saying in the comments, "Tales from the Hood" and Get Out does it the best. I agree. I love Get Out. I think Get Out is a great way of talking about that, like that situation that we've all been in, that awkward party or something like that, right? I think Get Out does a beautiful job of making you feel that. But at the end of the day, the horror is still something that, if the characters I'm cautious saying this, but if the characters were white, I think you could change a few things about the story and still have the same exact movie. And I
Yeah.
think that was Jordan Peele's point. Like he's going to set the framework up as racism is the framework. And that's how we're going to tell the story. But I think what people liked about it was the horror element of it was still horrifying, versus with them, the horror element of it is just horrifying for black people. Like white
Yeah.
people could watch them and be like, like that's I can sympathize, but that's it
Yeah.
could literally never happen to them.
And them also, it creates a repulsion rather than like an actual fear. And I think that's different too, because because what Get Out is just a creepy story, right? So like you could be a white person watching that movie, be like, oh my god, could you imagine taking somebody's brain out and putting it in somebody else's body? Like literally, if you take the race
Right.
element out of it, it's just scary. The
Right.
concept of it, right?
Yeah, exactly. And he's successfully done that with the rest of his films, and that's what he's was talking about when he first said, like, I got six in the can. I got like I'm as long as people keep giving me money, I'm gonna keep making these movies. And one of the things that he said is, and this kind of ties back into representation, but he talked about he wanted black people in his films, but he wanted it to not be remarkable. Like he wanted their blackness to not be a plot point, but they are black and they act black. Like he didn't want to make white characters black people. He wanted to make black characters who are culturally black. They act black. Like I just think of like the dad in Us, or the fact that that movie, the theme song is I Got Five on it. Like that is the main theme, the thematic orchestral playing of that entire movie. Like the movie, like top to bottom, was just like these are all black. Like you gonna know that this movie's about black people, and culturally, it's about black people and black people's experience. But the thing that happens, the horrifying thing that happens, is terrifying for everybody involved.
Yeah. And race is not a factor in the horror at all. It's just or if it is, like it's not, it can happen. It's happening to everybody. It's affecting the world. This is a global problem. We're just following black people specifically with this story. I think that's I think but like isn't that all black material that is actually something like Abbott Elementary? They don't talk about being black on the show. We just know it's black. Like very rarely is race actually a topic of conversation. And I'm like, that's actually how black people are and live. When black people are in a space together, they don't talk about being black most of the time.
Right, exactly.
We are black. We don't talk about being black. And or we may not be having a racial experience. Like we're black. What we're literally just having an experience. If something like if somebody breaks in and tries to get us, we're going to have a black experience of that situation, right? But it's not a racial experience. And I think we need more films like that, where like the black people are just ultimately like we're just following black people in a situation, in a story that ultimately has nothing to do with race.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's kind of a better way to put. I've been racking my brain trying to like explain representation in that way without making it sound like degrading. But I think that's what it is, like having these characters be culturally black and do black things, but their blackness is not a plot point in the film. It's just they're gonna act black because they are black. Like that's
like
all.
You could pull black people out, put white people in it. You could tell the same story. It's just going to be a different film. That's what we need. That is cultural specificity, and that is in turn what is the universality, which connects people to the films. That's why people like them, because it's like something like I think Friday is a great film. Friday is a great example of like you may change a few things here and there, but like ultimately this is just a very culturally specific black story. Mm-hmm. But it's not about them being black. Maybe you can't place white people in that situation. Like you can't. Maybe white people don't live in this area. It's about a black neighborhood,
right?
But you can watch that story and just follow the story that they're telling. Because somewhere out there, you maybe had an experience similar to this. It's just not the black version. And I think you're right. And like it sounds silly saying like the black version or the white version, but like I'm just saying like. True representation is us just existing.
Right. Yes, exactly. Yeah. And actually I just lost my train of thought, but so we've been talking about like a bunch of different movies over the course of time, and we talked a lot about, well, a little bit about like sitcoms and stuff like that. So to kind of steamroll into the end of this episode, you are probably my biggest source for black sitcoms, especially in the 90s. So I don't forget nothing. And we had like a golden age. Like that was a great time for sitcoms in general. And I think we got a lot of our really good work. So is there anything or a style or anything that you would bring back? Like what's one that you're like, if we could reboot anything, what would your reboot film be?
See, I don't want
or a
I,
show.
I don't want to actually reboot anything because everything had its time and its place. But like I was thinking earlier today, man, I would have loved to have been in college when A Different World was on, because like
Mm.
that experience, like what was that experience of being in school, or maybe even being in high school and about to go to college or university, like what would that have experienced to see yourself in that light on screen with A Different World? Like, remove all the Whitley and the like just the concept of college and talking about real life issues that are happening. We're not talking about that first season of A Different World, no, but like
Right.
from season 2 on of A Different World, like how can we get that back on screen where we get people excited about what is happening in the world while while just being funny at the same time. Like how can we like bridge the gap without being preachy with about it too? Because I think A Different World talked about essentially what is black trauma without getting traumatic with it half the time. You know what I mean? And I
Right.
think we can stand to have in general a lot more comedy that touches on these issues or that um, goes into these kinds of conversations so that we can not traumatize ourselves so much while actually trying to grow. I think we need humor in it. That's why I like some people on TikTok who just are really funny with their education. I think ultimately like that is what we need. We need the education to be entertaining again. We need education
Yeah.
to be entertaining again. To actually
Yes.
be entertainment, because ultimately this is a medium where people are trying to be entertained. And I think just to like in terms of like sitcoms, and I know I'm getting a little off topic, but what
Oh no,
I
you're good,
think
man.
what happened is film got so gritty, and so we feel like we need to tell like really gritty depictions or like really accurate depictions of these stories because, as you said, Roots happened in the 70s. Roots was also on ABC as a miniseries, so there was only so deep they could go. They couldn't show everything, but now because film is allowing us to show so much. I think people are trying to show the truth so much, and like they're
Right.
trying to they think that's the way to like. Oh, and what I do appreciate about the movie Till, is they didn't show any of that. They didn't show any of the carnage. They didn't show the abuse. We don't need to see that because the impact will be felt anyway. Now, it's not a funny film, but
Right.
ultimately, I do think we need to just bring the entertainment back and find the way that we can meet telling our stories, telling history, or telling what current events while still being entertaining, while also having things like Nope or uh,
Right. Yeah.
Us. But like, how can we bring the entertainment back?
Yeah. Someone in the comment is saying like bring back reading Rainbow, and I don't know if you've heard of Gracie's Corner. I have kids, so I listen to Gracie's Corner constantly, and it's nursery rhymes and kind of the fairy tale songs that we all know, but done in a very black way. I mean, that there's not another way to say it. They're done in a very black way, and I think that is like a beautiful thing, especially for young black kids. And I try to kind of reach out and show my kids these like these images. Hopefully, but I do think we're getting better in a lot of ways because there's a lot more content that I can show my daughters that I never had when I was a kid. Like as far as like representation goes, like I didn't have that many black heroes or that many black people that I could just continuously watch or want to watch or see. Like there was the sitcoms, there was those things, but especially as a kid, like kid shows, there wasn't a ton of it. But now it feels like it's just not everywhere, but there's a lot more than there was before. Somebody in the comments brought up a series that did get rebooted, but they did the gritty thing. Have you seen Bel Air?
Yeah. And how it was, it took a little fun sitcom and it got gritty. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like the real life story of what would happen. Yeah.
Yeah, like what was supposed to happen, or how was he supposed to be? I didn't get a chance to actually watch it because I just felt like I was like I don't want to keep seeing like gritty shows and things like that, like kind of, I don't know. It might be great. I heard that it was good. I heard that it was bad. I heard like,
That's
it's
the beauty. But I think what is happening and what I do appreciate, not just about that show, is just that I think we're getting more content where if you're black, you will find what is for you. Because the truth is, we always say we're not a monolith. Well, that means we're not going to be able to always enjoy every single thing that, like, everything that's black is not for us. And that's
right.
okay. You know? I think we all lead very different lives and have different experiences, and so we're going to naturally connect to different things. And I think the more we also own that, the more actually we'll be able to connect to each other's stories and enjoy it for what it is, rather than trying to force ourselves into feeling like, oh, this is a black, I'm supposed to connect to that. No, it's just a story. And I
Right.
think, but I think you would like it. Actually, I think you should see it.
I
it
the
it's
bunch
not
of people in the
necessarily
comments are convincing me.
because it's not. I don't think it's not as gritty as you think it is. It's just dramatic. It's serious version of the same
Right.
initial story.
Right.
Yeah.
Same thing. But to your point of making it entertaining, um I know when the show first came out, a lot of people were pulling clips from the old show saying like, yeah, but they still did that. Like the episode where
Mm-hmm.
Carlton has a gun. I know, like I feel like everybody brings up that one, that episode, or the episode where Will's dad leaves and he has that great monologue at the end of it. And there's another good monologue with Carlton when Carlton's carrying the gun and he just breaks down because he had gotten robbed earlier in the story and he's afraid. And you see all these things, and they had to deal with that, talk about like
Right.
not only just him having it, but like he's also black and he has it, and now it's this. So there were a lot of like heavy topics that
Yeah.
went on, but it was just in this. It was surrounded by the bread on either side of the sandwich was very
Yeah.
lighthearted.
But in the sitcom version, that is an example of the trope of every single time you have a show with black people, there's a burden of representation of you have to hit every single key talking point, which is what they were trying to do with Abbott Elementary, of having an episode about that, is that they want to introduce a gun into every single black sitcom in some way, even if the characters are not necessarily realistically going to be in that experience. We need to have some sort of
Right.
a story where we talk about that, because that is a talking point within Black America today. And I think that's also something that wasn't always the best aspect of 90s sitcoms. They wanted to tell a story. It was the burden of representation of being one of the few black shows on TV, and so therefore we got to talk about everything that's important within blackness. We don't have the
Right.
ability to just be a silly sitcom. Well, that's one of the reasons why I appreciated something like Sister Sister, is that the most of the heaviness stayed within a traditional teenage experience. They didn't go
Right.
into a black talking point show.
Right. Yeah. I didn't. I, I'm processing it now and realizing that that was a lot of those shows. But at the time I never even noticed it. I guess we're all. But yeah, Family Matters had a gun
That one,
episode.
that one traumatized me because the girl actually got shot on that episode. And then there
Oh
was the
yeah.
the hanging with Mr. Cooper episode with the gun. And
Yeah.
and Omar Gooden falls in love with the girl from the Power Rangers, and then all of a sudden she died at the end of the episode. She died. Like, there was
Oh.
nothing on Hanging with Mr. Cooper up until that point that ever let me know that Omar Gooden was gonna have a girlfriend that dies. Nothing. We would never expect that. Like, and like there's the grittiness on something like Full House tended to be more like drinking or like getting in a car with boys after they are drinking or smoking cigarettes, things like that. Not
Right.
not like somebody getting shot and dying just so we can learn that guns are bad. Like I didn't need that, and that's the thing because it was like, who are these shows for? Are they're like literally they know that all the black kids in America are watching these sitcoms because there's nothing else. And they're literally
Right.
talking directly to the black kids as if this is necessary, as if this is all of our reality.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I forgot about that Mr. Cooper hanging with Mr. Cooper episode. Oh man. Oh. Oh no. Oh.
No, you thought you
So
thinking about that episode, right? That hanging with Mr. Cooper episode. You thought about that whole death, right? Like it's like really
yeah.
it's really dark, and then the episode ends with a bunch of little kids, little black kids, like real kids, talking about their experiences with guns in their area and hearing gunshots with where they live. I'm like, it became an episode of Dateline
Yeah.
2020. Like it
I,
literally became that.
yeah, I remember they used to do. I haven't seen it in a little while. I think the last time that I remember like a show pulling away to be like, hey, this is actually a problem is maybe the the good doctor. I've seen do this, and I really remember with uh 13 Reasons Why or whatever, them basically stopping the entire show to talk about, like, let's talk about this for real and we'll have like an actual interview with people and do this real thing. But I forgot, like, yeah, in the 90s, they used to do that all the time. They'd have a bunch of little kids at the end talking about like whatever,
Yeah,
it would be about
have the actors.
HIV or it would
Right.
be about, yeah, it would be some horrible thing and it would end really bleakly because that was the point of the lesson. They got to teach us a lesson. So it's got to just be, so it has to end bad. So
Right.
like the
And
character
but they would
that sleeps
always
around gets
give kids,
HIV.
they were always giving the kids like they were chilling kids, scaring them while they just trying to have a happy little sitcom night on TGIF. They like scare they had to do that. They had the actors come out and they'd be like, if you or anybody you knows is doing this, the Family Matters episode, they literally said squash it. It was disturbing to me as a child. I was like, I don't. I was just trying to have. I remember being a kid and seeing Boys in the Hood and not being as traumatized as I was by Family Matters because that's not what Family Matters is supposed to be giving me.
Yeah, this is for entertainment purposes. We were trying to take a break. Like
Yeah,
there's ways to talk about this stuff or tell us about this stuff, but still be, I guess, entertaining or still be light about it. Not just suddenly out of nowhere take your very lighthearted, wacky sitcom and just slam on the parking brake to stop and talk about something awful and it's going to continue to be awful. Now it feels like instead of doing that you have the silent credit roll, like the episode just ends, just fade to black, and when it comes up you just get like white text that says like uh, phone number, some helpline number. If you or anyone you know, now it's just a title card with just
yeah,
white text there.
with a hotline.
Yeah. Hotline number and that's basically it. They just kind of squash the whole like sitting down and talking to people kind of feel of it. But I think it's for more or less for the best
Yeah.
to really get rid of those to get rid of those things. So let's give some recommendations. What are your favorite entertaining shows? Like we can, that's nothing too heavy. Like what lighthearted? We said Abbott Elementary, something I guess in the vein of that.
Well,
Like
yeah, no, I
who
like I
what are
like
you watching?
I like Abbott Elementary. I really do like Harlem, and I'm excited about when that comes back out for the second season. I think it starts next month. And then what else is there? Lighthearted. I have to really rack my brain to see what's lighthearted and black.
Oh
Um,
no.
but yeah, no, those two are like the main lighthearted shows that I really like that are black. I actually appreciate the Miss Pat show.
Hmm.
It's not necessarily lighthearted, but it's so black. I mean, it is funny, and it usually has just a light sense of humor about itself. But
Hmm.
it even though it sometimes goes into darker or deeper or heavy topics, it
Right.
does tend to it's doing it in such a black, culturally specific black, but not having to talk about being black way that you don't I don't personally ever walk away from the show feeling like they were preaching to me or that it ever got heavy. It just felt like if people I knew were talking about these important topics, you know,
Right.
and I don't usually get that on television very often. So I really do appreciate those. And then there's some other stuff I think that I probably really like. I just don't remember it. But yeah.
So that was TV. Are there any movies, any films that you've just seen that are great or are coming out that you're excited for?
Well, listen, I mean, something like Megan was really good because you could tell it was written by a black woman. Like you can actually tell. Like she wasn't trying to. Yes, she was writing about white people, but you could tell that you can't take away your own experience when you're writing. You can write about
Hmm.
anybody, and I appreciated that film. Oh, I see the menu was great. The menu was great.
Hmm.
And then yeah, I've been seeing a lot of films recently, so like my head is like filled with so many of them, but. Um, Most recently, I thought I did see Megan, and I actually appreciated what it was because it was just fun for fun's sake, and I appreciated that. Listen, I mean, we need, like I said, we need more black people behind the camera and more black people writing the scripts. And Akila Cooper, who actually wrote Megan, is actually writing a sequel to Night of the Living Dead, and so that's
Oh.
soon. And she also is working on this other project. I mean, because there was I did see this film called uh, what is it? I think it's Ma. It's on Amazon Prime. It was the most
Hmm.
recent Sundance winner. Yatu Jasu is the Nick. I don't know how to say her name actually, but her last name is Jasu, and it's a film about a immigrant who is a nanny, an African immigrant who is a nanny to a white family, and she's working so she can bring her son to America.
It's called Nanny.
Nanny. I was like, what is it called? My something. Nanny. Yes. And I saw that. I respected it. I don't know if I love it, but I respected it for what it was, and I just think we need more stories like that as well that are telling just a wide diasporic experience.
Yeah. I loved Nanny. The ending. The end got weird, but
Very.
but the movie was it was good. It was creepy. It was surreal. I liked it. I liked it a lot. I don't know. I don't think I had high expectations for it, and I think it just kind of surpassed anything that I thought that it was going to be.
Yeah, I had
Another.
no expectations for it at all. I just knew that like it won at Sundance, so it had to at least be artistically solid, you know?
Right. Yeah. There's another movie. I don't know if you've seen. I just watched this the other night with my wife. Emergency. It's also on Amazon Prime, and the uh, like quick overview of the plot without any spoilers. I think it's like three. I think it's three guys. It's three guys. They all live in this college town. There's a bunch of frat houses around them, but they live in like a college apartment off campus. and they're out one night and they come home because they forgot something. So they stop back home really quick and they realize that their front door is open. So they kind of sneakily go in and they're like nervous, and they realize that there is a young white girl passed out on their floor. And her being white is a plot point that was important to say. And the movie just kind of continues on with the experience of three black guys debating whether or not they should call the police, whether or not they should do a few things, but a lot of it comes back to, well, we're black, so we probably shouldn't do that, or we can't do that, or we can't do whatever. And I think it was a good film that kind of does what we were just talking about. It's a comedy. It's a dark comedy. It's pretty funny the majority of the time that it's doing what it's doing. It's trying to be funny. It is very funny. And then when it has its serious moments, it takes you there, lets you sit in it, and then pulls you back out and goes, okay, we're gonna keep being funny. We wanted you to see that, and then we're gonna come back and keep being, keep be lighthearted. It kind of made me think of like that old like saying, like, laugh because you have to. Like, there's nothing else that you can do. Like, just just laugh at the situation.
Yeah.
But it's a good film if you haven't got a chance to check it out. It's like Hangover, but racially charged as black and brown people. Yeah, yeah, that's a good comparison. It's like The Hangover, except it's with black and brown people, and that's a plot point.
Okay.
A lot of it's one of those downhill kind of movies, you know what I mean? Like, one bad thing happens and then it's just like a bunch of bad stuff happens because that one
Right.
bad thing happened.
Right.
There's just the rest of the movie is them trying to play catch up to but they keep digging themselves deeper. Yeah, so it's that kind of film.
Yeah. I saw a banner for it. Like, I saw them promoting it a little bit. So
Oh yeah.
I'll check it out.
Yeah, absolutely check it out. But that would be, I guess, my rec. So just kind of final thoughts with this podcast. We try to give people like actionable items, and this might be fun homework for folks. So when it comes to supporting, I know like a lot of, especially white folks, like to support, buy black, do what they can. What would your suggestion be? Is that going to the movie theater? Is that just watching shows on TV or Netflix or something like that? Is that starting to find directors that they like and championing their work? As far as film and television goes, how could somebody support the black community?
I guess and specifically, like, I always tell people, just like, you have to watch things. So like, look up your favorite actors and actually see what people are doing, because usually some of your favorite people are always like, well, where are they? It's like, they're working, they're usually, there's so much out that is happening and we just don't always know about it. And so I think we have to do our due diligence to essentially find out what's happening and not just rely on the promotion that is not necessarily being given to these projects, right? So I think that's number one. And then also, don't bootleg nothing if you don't have to bootleg it. Like actually, like, try to, like, please, like, actually rent the films or watch them on stream. Even if, like, you can watch obviously on free streaming services, but like, try to actually get some money into these projects, because ultimately, yes, you are helping the top, but you actually, it trickles down. And if these projects don't make money, they're not going to make them anymore. So
Right.
yeah, so like, do your due diligence to actually just really look up what some of your favorite actors and filmmakers are doing, and actually check it out, because usually people are pretty busy.
Yeah. I can absolutely agree with that. The first thing that kind of popped into my head, especially with like Amazon Prime, and it has that little X-ray feature. I always just like look up even just the directors. Like, you go down the list, you see like the director, like what else have you directed, or such and such is the writer, what else have you written? I think even support the actors and support that, but these are the people creating these stories too. Like, keep supporting their work, and it isn't just the Jordan Peels of the world. There's a lot of black writers. There's a lot of black directors. There's a lot of people. Find out who those people are and keep supporting their work. As far as like what they, what other things that they try to do that are in this same vein. And yes. Just rent the movie. And just pay the $3 or the $5 or whatever, man. Just rent the movie.
Rent the movie, pay for it, watch it on the streaming service, whatever. But like, pay for it. But honestly, just follow your favorite. Follow your favorite filmmakers' careers. Like, just follow the trajectory, because you'll never know where people are going to end up, and it's so good to actually be paying attention to that. And also, like, when you see something really good and you really like it, look up who made it and actually start researching where they came from and where they're going, and or what their mission statement is. Because so many filmmakers, writers, all artists, everyone has a mission statement, an intention behind what they're doing and what they want their art to say. And it's really good to get in touch with that, because the work will feel different when you know who they are.
Yeah, absolutely. So we can wrap it up here. I'll let you get running. So again, for people that are just jumping into the live or just re-paying attention, say your name, what you do, and where folks can find you. Plug all the things.
Okay, all the things. My name is Anwar Ali. I am an actor, writer, and I also am an acting coach in Los Angeles. And you can find me on all platforms at the Anwar Ali. So TheAnwarali.
Cool. Do you have like a specific website for the coaching and all that? We didn't even get a chance to get into that.
Well, my coaching tends to be on. Right now, I'm actually more of an adjunct professor at different universities. So I tend to just I either go to the university directly or I will Zoom in with a class. But maybe I will start. Maybe I'll start coaching people if they want that.
yeah, man, that's awesome. I imagine there's a ton of people that are like, I could get, I need help with whatever. I'm not an actor. I don't know anything about acting.
But I'm also really good at like monologue coaching. So if you want to if you want to get in schools or like grad school, like, or a BFA or MFA program for acting, like, I know all the tricks to get you in. But
cool. Yeah. Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming out and being on and hanging out with me. It was your first live. How was it?
It was cool. It was good. Made it. It was just like talking. It was all right.
Yeah, man, we made it. We made it all the way through. I'm glad to have you on to talk about this topic, because I think it's really important to kind of keep talking about this from a black perspective. So thank you guys so much in the comment section. Thanks everybody for coming and hanging out, and we will see you later.
See you.
All right, peace.
Bye.
Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you guys enjoyed that as much as I enjoyed recording it for you. Thanks again to Anwar for coming on. He has an encyclopedic knowledge of film and television, and I could barely keep up with him. He's an amazing actor. He's an amazing guy. Please check out his content. It's awesome. I'm going to link it down below. But a little bit of housekeeping. If you want to support the show monetarily, there are Venmo and Cashapp links down below. If you can't do that, I completely understand. Please do leave a comment or a review, 5 stars or anything like that. And I also heard a rumor that downloading the show actually helps some way. So Spotify and Apple Podcasts, I know that you can do that. But one last thing, just remember, I love you, and please go drink some water, like right now. Stay hydrated. All right, see you next week.